Well, good morning to all of you. Larry Gullett, currently work for the Johnson County Conservation Board. And I think the reason why I was asked to come address the committee was to represent the local needs and issues that are related to this program. And so to give you a little bit of my background, I originally am from Jasper County. I worked for Jasper County Conservation Board for 5 years. Worked for Dallas County Conservation Board just west of Des Moines for 18 years. Worked for the Jones County Conservation Board up by Monticello for 9 years, and now I'm in Johnson County. And one regularity that all those places have is rivers and streams. And I spent a lot of time working with rivers and streams. For a while, I was a naturalist and worked with school kids. And I spent about 10 years surveying and identifying all the fish and invertebrates and all the other aquatic life that live in intermittent streams from about ice out in the spring through the fall. So I developed this real appreciation for the complexity of life in the stream. And so, you know, a couple of years ago when I started hearing this term, concept, river and stream restoration, after working in the field for about 30 years, it was hard for me to wrap my head around what do they actually mean by this. And I work in this field every day. And so I was kind of confused, and I spent a lot of time in the last 2 years trying to figure this out so I could imagine what it's like to people that don't work with natural resources every day, what this is. Why the heck do we need a program and spend more money focused on natural resources? So what I've done is put together a 2-page handout on the way I see things and what our needs are locally and how this program could help. And when I was so happy, I think Jim Gillespie nailed it when he said that he thinks that there's 6 issues we need to concentrate on. Those 6 issues that he mentioned right at the end are all the primary focus of stream and river restoration. So I thought he did a great job at that. The other issue too is that last week I went to a presentation over in by the Hungry Canyons Alliance, and John did a presentation on some of the stream restoration projects that they've done to help control that erosion over there. And he broke it down to costs, and they were happy. On one bridge infrastructure project, they got the cost down to between $39 and $47 a linear foot, and they were elated. The thing about these natural stream restoration methods is that they cost half that. And so if I did a natural stream restoration project to stabilize a bank, and I came in at $39 to $46 a linear foot, I would consider that on the high end. A lot of times you can do projects like this for $22 to $25 a linear foot. And so the cost issue is also attractive for adopting this type of program. But so in summary then, to me, river and stream restoration, and I put this on a handout so people in the room can see this outline too, but it's kind of a summary. I'll try to go through it. But the river and stream restoration is different than other in or near stream approaches to control flooding, reduce erosion, and protect infrastructure, and that it prescribes improvements that do these things, plus improve water quality and the aquatic community function and value. So how can somebody be against that if you can do these things and still protect aquatic life and improve water quality at a lesser cost? It seems like a wonderful no-brainer way to go. And so that's kind of what a river and stream restoration program does to me. And it's important that the framework for a program is focused on enhancing the function and value of rivers and streams. And so if you approach this program from the standpoint perspective that everything that we're going to do is to support the function and value of streams and rivers, then it makes sense. And so now to get into the local needs. Right now, we had about an 11-inch rainfall last spring, April, in Johnson County. And 11 inches of water is a lot. And when you have a disaster like this, a lot of your critical infrastructure within towns, and critical infrastructure, as you know, has a definition. And a piece of critical infrastructure is threatened by a disaster, there are state and federal funds available to help the local communities mitigate that damage. If you don't have critical infrastructure, that is farm fields, bike trails, things like that, you're on your own. And in this 11-inch rainfall, you know, we talk about all these flood buyouts and development of parks and greenways along rivers and streams. Well, people want to develop those greenways and corridors into park areas, green spaces. Well, when communities develop those, even at a low level, like putting in boat ramps and trails and things like that, and then there's a disaster, those local communities and municipalities have to bear the cost of remediating that damage on their own. And so we had this happen in Johnson County. We just put in a new section of bike trail a couple of years ago. There's about 120 to 150 foot section of trail now that is threatened over the next few years because the stream widened its banks. And we don't want to go in and rip-wrap that entire bank hard armor because number one, rip-wrap is expensive. And number two, it just moves the problem somewhere else with bank erosion as the stream tries to come to an equilibrium. So what's happening is that we want to do this natural stream restoration. It's half the cost. It's compatible with the natural environment and protecting the environment. So we started looking around who can help us do this. Nobody's available. There's only a handful of people in the entire state that have the expertise to help us locally. We have sent 3 of our staff members to training by a stream restoration professional. Dave Derrick's his name, and he lives in Mississippi. And because, you know, we've been restoring prairie and forest for 30 years or more, but because we've never actually gone right into a stream bed and started manipulating the banks and messing with that system, we feel really uncomfortable doing it. And so what we're having to do to restabilize this bank along Clear Creek, even though it's half the cost of rip-wrapping, we are having to engage Dave Derrick as a consultant. And just him helping us on this project, coming up here from Mississippi to help us locally do this, is about a $6,000 to $7,000 consulting fee for us to do this. If we had somebody locally at the state level that could help us do these things, we could reduce the cost to all the local organizations. And so it's something that's just beginning, and we really need the help. So under the local needs, we need expertise for methodology and techniques used in stream restoration to support the function and value of rivers. The other thing that's happening is that Nate mentioned that we're having to mitigate damage to streams. And we have a quarry, it's called Big River Stone. They're quarry owners in Johnson County. Almost every rock and sand quarry in the state, if you think about where these quarries are located, they're located in floodplains next to creeks and streams. And when they go in and they develop a rock quarry, almost all of them have to reroute that stream around the quarry. Under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, they have to now mitigate that stream somewhere else. They have to improve a stream. And so how do you assess the damage that they're doing to to that stream. With wetlands, it's very easy because you can just calculate the acres and say if you damage 3 acres of wetland, you have to go mitigate 3 acres of wetland. On a stream where they're all different widths, the bank height varies, the length of the stream, we need somebody to show some leadership and develop a protocol that these quarry operators, the county conservation boards, the cities can use to go out, and if they're going to impact a stream, a uniform way to develop a methodology for mitigating that stream somewhere else. So we're all working from the same document. And this is what a stream restoration program would be to develop those protocols for use statewide. The other thing that we could do is that after you assess the damage to a stream and you have to mitigate it somewhere else, rather than just randomly going out on the landscape somewhere in Iowa and saying, oh, I have to put $200,000 to mitigate this stream, and just randomly doing it somewhere, you could identify priority areas so you get real results from the mitigation activity. And so this river restoration program could identify priority areas to help improve fish and wildlife and benefits to the local community. And so with the lack of knowledge at the local level, we need training and expertise, education. And so the other thing that we're not asking you to fund the stream restoration statewide. We're not asking the state to come in and fund the restoration of streams and do all this for the local communities. But rather what we're asking you to do is set up some sort of training and education program so you can teach people how to do these things effectively. And so we need the training and education. When I go to county conservation board meetings, different districts around the state, and we talk about these things, the strong majority of us don't understand this yet. And so there's a tremendous need for education, even within the conservation community, for this. And so, a couple other things that I put on here is these are things that are really important conceptually to the program to keep in mind. When you're dealing with the landscape in rivers and streams, over time, streams evolve to become more complex and varied. They're highly diverse. We're talking about remeandering streams. That's an example of that. Over time, they become more diverse, so that's a characteristic that rivers and streams have. The other thing that they do over time is become more effective at recycling and sequestering nutrients. You can go home and Google. We all know that wetlands capture and recycle nutrients. For some reason, we haven't evolved to the point where we're looking at the impact of rivers and streams related to this. You can go home and Google nutrient recycling by rivers and streams, and it's amazing. In some cases, they are just as effective at recycling nutrients as wetlands. And so if a stream restoration program focuses on the diversity and the recycling and sequestering of nutrients, this could potentially even help with our nutrient issues that we have in the state of Iowa, if it's done right. And so those are two important concepts to keep in mind. Some of this is a little bit repetitive, but some of the local issues. Interest in stream restoration to stabilize banks and improve water quality at the local level is increasing faster than on-the-ground expertise. Information and expertise is needed to facilitate projects is not available. A state-coordinated program is necessary to set priorities, train professionals, and provide guidance and help control costs. Number two, with increasing demand to clean up our water, it's important for people to understand that waterways help clean water by recycling and sequestering nutrients. Most people, including the majority of conservation professionals, don't understand the value and function of rivers and waterways in keeping our water clean. A statewide program needs to be established that provides accurate and unbiased information for local officials. And Jim talked a little bit about the urban community. This is critically needed by the urban and the rural community. Then we talked a little bit about mitigation. Through the Clean Water Act, when negative impact occurs, businesses and local governments are faced with mitigating damage to the system. Because no state programs exist to identify priorities and set standards for methods, unnecessary delays and extra costs are passed on to the local communities and businesses. That stream restoration that I was telling you about along Clear Creek, where first thing we did when we knew we were going to have to address this issue is call a local engineering company out to the site. And when we showed them what we wanted to do, using a natural biological approach to the stream restoration, they just looked at it and gave us this blank stare. They have no idea how to go about this. And so by adopting a statewide program that recognizes this methodology, engineering firms would get more involved and engaged in understanding this type of program. And then finally, the flooding and flooding tributaries and main stem rivers impact thousands of acres of agricultural, residential, and commercial developments. And these stream and waterway restoration methods can be used to reduce flooding and protect these investments. We need a program identifying accepted methods, and officials at the state level are positioned to efficiently and effectively train and coordinate these efforts. And so I'm about done here, but this I wanted to close by saying that rivers and waterways recycle and sequester nutrients. They provide outdoor recreation opportunities. They serve as aquatic and riparian habitat for fish and wildlife. Streams and rivers connect things together, such as our communities, public and private land, and other states. And they serve to store floodwaters during runoff events. And so I thank you for giving me the chance to come here and talk about this. If any of you have any questions, I'm going to stay most of the day and just listen to the different presentations.
Thank you, Larry. In point number 2 on your local issues, you say that the statewide program needs to be established to provide accurate and unbiased information. In part, don't we already have that, the geological survey? And Iowa City is a base of a lot of their operations. I want to bring that up to the committee because geological surveys are going through the organization. And we have more sections, geology and groundwater, GIS mapping, water monitoring, and watershed improvement. And there's some reorganization going on there. But this is not a regulatory agency. It provides unbiased information. And, I think that we need to maintain, our geological survey by the proof traffic. Probably, familiar with this, I don't know if I want to comment, but it is, but it's fair, and it's unbiased information for the open to anybody. So I just want to bring, I don't know, you're in Iowa City. I mean, what do you know about them being used as a resource for local communities?
That's who we go to when we want information on water quality, the natural science portion of it. That's where we go, is to them. But the other thing I wanted to mention is you'll hear a lot of people talk about we need a science-based program for this. I would expand that to include the social sciences too. We need natural sciences and we need the social sciences involved because communities value these streams and waterways. It's more than just the natural sciences. So,
Yes. Representative Rob.
Thank you. My question relates to the universal traits of rivers and streams. And number 2, you say that streams and waterways become more efficient at recycling and reusing nutrients. Now, when you say that, are you talking about after the restoration? Or are you talking about just over time? And if so, how much time? Because as Senator Doxler has pointed out, the dead zone keeps growing. And if rivers and streams were efficient at recycling nutrients, I don't believe that we would be so focused on our nutrient reduction strategy and all the efforts that we're putting into that if our streams were doing such a good job of that. So can you sort of expand and shed some insight into what you meant by that?
yes. Number 1 is that both those universal traits of rivers and streams is an observation of what happens to the natural landscape over time. And so if you look at what land wants to do and what rivers and streams want to do, coming to an equilibrium, the way they evolve and change over time, one of the things that they do is that nature does is keep and recycle nutrients for as long as possible on the landscape before they're lost to the system. And when you get in a stream and you walk down through there and you use kick nets to sample the aquatic community, or you turn over rocks and you pick up all these animals, or you net fish, what you're seeing, all this life that lives in the stream, that's what it's doing, is recycling nutrients. It's using nutrients as energy. And so if you develop a methodology for going in and restoring a stream or a river that does not, that just transports those nutrients down, the purpose is to get those nutrients downstream as fast as possible and out of the way, you're trying to develop a program that is against or resistant to what the stream is trying to do. So what the Rivers and Stream Restoration Program does is increases diversity within the stream. So rather than going in and hard armoring an entire section of stream just to protect the soil erosion, which also increases water velocity when you hard armor a stream bank, if you're trying to actually slow that water down and hold it in place and create logs and sticks and rocks in a diverse environment, then you're going to be more effective at recycling nutrients and holding them in place.
So through the stream restoration helps hold the nutrients back, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But there's a limit to what a stream can do, in pulling those nutrients out. That's why we've really got to, do a better effort of keeping those nutrients on the ground before it gets into our waterways. Rivers and streams on the restoration part do pull out a lot of nutrients, and but when you've got velocity and you've got high volumes of nutrients, even the best filter system in the world is not going to be able to keep up and hold it. And I think that's part of the problems that we're seeing. But restored rivers where you've got a meander and you've got all this aquatic life and all the things, they're highly efficient and a very effective way of removing these nutrients and keeping them out of our rivers of Mississippi and Cedar down to the Gulf. So I do know that other states are tremendously concerned, and they're always pointing the finger upriver. And agricultural states are the ones that are really getting the finger pointed at them. And I think our efforts and the DNR efforts and county efforts to do this restoration and buffer strips and those kind of things are going to help considerably, besides good sound farming practices and cover crops and those kind of things all help also.